this ain't tardiness for you because this pod starts whenever you start it. But for poor Matt, who has to edit this, I try to get this thing into him as early as possible. But I was slowed down because when I was about to start recording, I just heard what sounded like what a high speed chase and some like dodging of cars and screeching and stuff. And then when it didn't stop, I realized like, oh, there's a street takeover. Some dudes is outside doing donuts right down the street. So the thing is, since I still live in city limits, that's going to happen. You know, little burnout circles. You could do your YouTube searches on that. And I wasn't so like excited or mad as much as I was just annoyed. Like, I mean, nigga, hurry up. Bro, you become a NIMBY quickly. Which is probably what's going to be the tap in this week. Anyway, to live and die in LA. Speaking of which, what's going on with the 626? Hood politics, y'all. I am from the 626, nestled neatly about 20 minutes east of East Los, in between the inland and the coast. I talk about being from this area of town almost all the time. Now, those who know me by junior high would say, what are you talking about? You're from the Inland Empire. Well, we moved to the Inland Empire while my parents were still together. And then by the time high school started, my parents split. And at that point, I was in a joint custody situation. And since I really didn't have a desire to stay out in the Inland Empire, I definitely leaned towards more spending as much time as I could at my pops' house back in La Puente, where I found most of my origins. Now, some of y'all are like, I thought you was from the east side of South Central. I was. We moved a lot. See, you understand what I'm trying to tell you. But since I ain't really put in no work out there in South Central, I always say I was born in South Central. My family is from South Central. I, however, as you hear in every song I say, is from the 626. Now, the 626 is the area code. Now, when I was there as a child, it was the 818, but 818 is now associated with the Valley, where Miles of Gray is from on the Daily Zeitgeist. Up there in North Hollywood and Chatsworth. My brother lives out there now, Granada Hills. That's the Great 18, you know what I'm saying? But 818 used to be where I was at. And then we got our new area code. And this is all important for a number of reasons. One of which, the experience of being someone Black in this area. Now, this is a little LA history, okay? We had redlining, we had zoning laws, and then we had white flight. Now, a lot of this happened before I was around, right? I'm backing into what I'm about to talk about. Just stay with me now. This is a To Live and Die in LA episode, so I'm gonna be very specific to Cali. Then we're gonna get national later. Like I've mentioned so many times before, my family came here from, at least my father's side, came here from Texas, from Dallas. You know, after Jim Crow, they came because of the Watts Towers projects, and then they settled in this band of streets that's essentially from the northernest part, Gage. None of this matters if you're not from here. All the way down to an area called Watts, and some of us were in Compton, and then east all the way to Inglewood, where someone like a D Smoke is from, right? So this area is South Central, right? But as times change, as migration happens, as people spread out, and because again, like I said, we had redlining and then white flight, Black people started dispersing. One of the areas they dispersed was up northeast of Los Angeles, right? Now, I'm going to get into the more specific history around that white flight a little later, which created the city of Alta Dena, which is what we're about to talk about, because Didn't it catch on fire? Y'all heard anything about what's been going on since? That's what this show's about. But I'm going to back into why I'm only talking about Alta Dena and not the Palisades. Hint is blackness. So my memory was, if you were a part of an African American community that had moved into this area that's called the San Gabriel Valley, which has been, I mean, it was Mexico, so it's very Latino. But when it became an incorporated city, again, there had to be a displacement of the Mexican population with white people in cities like San Dimas, Covina, stuff like that. But that was a little further north of me. Like I said, was in La Puente or Valinda. But where the black people were up a little higher in a city called Duarte, or Duarte, which is so funny to me because they're all Spanish terms, right? Now, as you go west, back towards LA proper city limits, this part of town, Duarte, is a little north, if you will, butting up against the foothills. What's strange about LA, which is very unique, a unique part, feature of this city, is there's actually a mountain range that goes through the city. It's what separates LA from the valley. And the Hollywood Hills is a part of a mountain range. Angeles Crest, all the way out to Mount Baldy and there's a mountain range that splits the city. It's very, so, but butting up on the foothills, again, as you go west, you start hitting Monrovia, then the city called Arcadia, Sierra Madre, then you hit Pasadena. And right north of Pasadena was Alta Dena. Now, if you, again, were a black family that moved out this direction, you have to now find, where's the Baptist church? Where you gonna get your hair cut? Where you gonna get your hair greased, right? Because some of the stuff is not so much racial as it is practical. Like, one of the hardest things I remember when we first moved, after I got married and my wife was in, refer to her by her prefix, was in her PhD program. We were living in Irvine, which is South Orange County. Now, as in the OC, as in all the TV shows, Real Housewives, all that, Orange County. I was like, I don't know where we can get just some tortillas. Where am I gonna get some hair grease? Like, this just, the practical sense of even the stores don't sell the products I need. So as far as I was concerned, I had no idea. I never connected the dots between Pasadena and the Tournament of Roses parade being white as all get out. I never thought about it because Pasadena and Alta Dena was so black to me. John Muir High School, it was such a black space for me. The thought never crossed my mind either why it was so black, right? Because in Pasadena, there's a lot of bloods up there, but those are really nice homes. It's a gorgeous, there's redwood trees and big, have to be 500-year-old pine trees that line the streets. It is beautiful. Sona Mobsessian is on Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend. I do listen to that show because I think it's hilarious. She lost her house during the Alta Dena fires because she lived in Alta Dena. I remember feeling like it was so bizarre to me to see anyone not black in Alta Dena because it was all I knew. But here's a little history. Like I said, I never thought about why. Prior to the 1960s, I'm reading from LAist, which is one of our independent news sources out here. I highly recommend supporting that. Them at LA Taco, I've talked about them before. But prior to the 1960s, Alta Dena was predominantly a white neighborhood because of redlining, right? I've talked to y'all about what redlining is. I don't need to go through that, right? But racial covenants in Pasadena prevented black families from moving in, right? So we could not be in there. But around this time, you gotta remember, there's such thing as a black middle class now, right? This is post-segregation, right? We're working, we're going to college now, we're making a little money. I don't gotta live in the projects no more, right? But then the passing of the Fair Housing Act, which was part of the Civil Rights Act, made discriminatory housing acts or practices illegal, right? Which meant that it ended the legal practice of redlining. Now, redlining didn't just affect black people, it affected Jewish community too. There were rules over your mortgage. They was you are not allowed to sell this house to a black family, a Mexican family, and Jewish family. You could sell it to whoever you want except for them three. Like, so even if you wanted to, that like the real estate would not allow you, the mortgage company will not allow you. You cannot sell. Zoning laws that were essentially like, hey, we don't need unsightly things inside of our communities, like a nuclear power plant, like a landfill, or a Black or Jewish family. Like these were the laws, right? Civil Rights Act ended that, which prompted white flight, because if there's anything white people in the 60s did not want, it was to live with us, right? So once the neighborhood started turning, they just left, right? So we was like, I mean, it's a nice house you got there. I can actually afford it now. And there's no law that says you can't sell it to me, right? So this is a good moment for anybody, right? So the white flight happened, right? Black families moved in and created the first middle class neighborhood that included Black residents in the area, known as the Meadows neighborhood. And then the Black population went from 1% in 1960 to 4% in 1970. And then Alta Dena now is 18% Black, right? And for an area that is pretty nice, if you bought a house in the 60s, oh, they became mansions later, right? So a lot of my friends, Madlib, who's not my friend, but a legend, right? The homie DJ Severe that DJs for the Dodgers, like, this is their parents' house, their grandparents' house. Like I said, this was where the barbershop was. This was where, if I wanted to like get a smoked turkey leg, like right now, I live on the east side. I live in a Latino community. It's really hard for me to go get a smoked turkey leg in any of these stores because they only use them during the holidays. I use them all the time. If I just want to make greens on Sundays, right? Yesterday, Alma went shopping and I was like, and since she works in an office and I work at home, I do a lot of cooking, right? But every once in a while I get a little frustrated because I'm like, where the Lawry's at? Like, I need some seasoning that we use. You feel me? But you got to go to the other side of town for that. And then we actually had some cool like overlap because I was looking for some bouillon, right? Because, you know, that's what when you're about to make some gumbo, you know, they look like little nuggets, right? Apparently you can get it as just powder. I didn't know that. So anyway, and apparently Mexicans use it too. So Alta Dena, I feel like for most of us was like, yo, this was like LA's best kept secret, unless you was from here. You feel me? This gorgeous upper middle class and middle class neighborhood that was Black as hell, as far as I was concerned, right? Anyway, as you guys know, the beginning of this year, it caught fire. Now, why it caught fire could be negligence. It could be a combination of negligence and climate change and a thing that was just bound to happen. Like we said in the last To Live and Die in LA, the block is literally hot. All these overlaps about the LA fires. It's that, dude, we get the Santa Ana winds, which is something that normally happens, but it coincided with fire season this time. And fire season, usually, none of them ever happen in January. This is why this was so bizarre. January usually rains, right? But times are changing, right? And when this happened, it's like, it just becomes, it's completely out of your control, right? We stopped doing controlled burns because we ain't listened to the natives, right? We're butting up our neighborhoods into these areas that don't have indigenous plants, right? So they can't stand the fires, right? We're not clearing brush. For some reason, we still build with wood. The wind started blowing. The ground is dry. And then apparently there was a power line that faltered, and that was it. It is what it is. Now, I got a homie that works, he climbs poles, the homie Journey Big, like he works for power companies and he fixes power lines. And he's like, ultimately, the only way to fix this is to make them underground. But he's like, there's parts of the city that is underground as far as like the power lines. The problem is, like, if there's a problem with it, he's like, he says, if there's a problem in the line somewhere underground, he calls his wife and he says, I'll see you in the morning because I'm probably gonna have to get old, because you have to hunt for it. He's like, if it's above ground, we could just look and go, oh, it's right there, and then go straight to it. But if it's under, we got to go under the ground, go through all those things. He was just like, it's harder work for us. But yeah, anyway, that's not the city. The city has above line powers. And as you know, the Pacific Palisades and Alta Dena, because of these two uncontrollable fires, just absolutely leveled our city in a way that has not been seen in a long time. And then there was drama around like the water and, you know, who owns the water and all that. We covered all that already, right? But the question is, after all these fundraisers, after all these donations, after all these we will rebuilds, Alta Dena's not for sale. How's it going? What's up? Well, I mean, we raised millions of dollars. Did they get that money? Are they rebuilding? Is Alta Dena truly, in fact, not for sale? See, when disasters happen, like, you don't hear about after the news cycle ends, after the cameras leave, like what's going on. Now, part of the problem here was after the fire stopped, the ice raid started. We ain't had no time to do nothing else. It's been a ill year here in LA. Like, it's been hard, fam. So let me tap in real quick with y'all and be like, okay, what's been going on in the 626? Next. All right, we bike. Now, I got good news and bad news. And I'm pretty sure you could probably guess both. Now, it was actually kind of hard to find this information. I think this is one of those, dog, it's so crazy. Like, it became so clear as I was researching this that there is so much riding on how this information is spun. Like, this, you need this to be a feel-good story, or you need this to be a disaster, depending on your agenda or political views. So it was very hard to find. There's no such thing as neutral information. I hope you've learned that by being a part of Hood Politics. There ain't no such thing as neutral information. But there's also no such thing as unbiased information. But it was so hard to find truthful information that was willing to paint the whole picture. That was the hardest part, because two things are going on here. There's a reality in America that there's two realities that have consistently followed disaster. One is the initial response is we really come together and we raise a ton of money. The second problem is nobody knows where the hell that money goes, and investors come and take everything. It's just, that's what it continues to happen. So I'm pretty sure you can guess all this. Now, I'm going to start with the good news, okay? The good news is things like this. According to LAist, which again is one of our local journalistic outlets, a coalition of architects created around 200 free individual plans to help people rebuild after losing their homes in the Eating Fire, right? And it's a larger effort to assist Alta Dena's Black community in preserving the cultural legacy in our neighborhood. There was this fear that, as you will find out, is not unfounded, that this being like the first and last, like Los Angeles proper, middle class, long lasting home owning community, that something like this would further destroy that. We've been priced out. Black people have either been priced out or just outnumbered, like all over LA. When I say outnumbered, I say this with no shade, but it's the Latino community. There's just so many of them, right? So it's not so much. And of course, there were struggles going through the 90s. We've talked about this so many times. There's been so much beef between our communities. We learned better. Like we've learned to work together. There's even at our civic level, there's like understandings around what like districts you're willing to run for and represent. Like there's been an agreement around a lot of our civic leaders to be like, okay, we're going to make sure we're going to preserve leadership to be Black here as long as you preserve leadership to be Latino there. And they've made choices to not run in districts that have been like, so there's a lot of like Black and brown unity, which was why that like that recorded audio that came out a few years ago with our like city council Latino leaders being hella racist was such an outrage with the people, because we fought really hard to build unity among our communities, right? So this thing is called the Rebuild Readiness Package, right? Which gives homeowners a head start in reconstruction in the process and connects them with architects from the Southern California chapter of, get this, the National Organization of Minority Architects, which is also called, or which is known as SoCal NOMA, which I had no idea existed. How dope is that? It's apparently a national organization, like it says, of minority architects, of color. And they said, listen, we gonna create these individualized plans. Like you think it's expensive to buy a house. Try building it from scratch. Do you know how much architects make? I didn't look it up because I think you can instinctually know they make fuck off money, right? But if you Black, if you a person of color and you see something happening like this would be a great time for you to push the culture forward. And this is good news. Now they can't buy it for you. They can't buy the materials for you. They can't do all that, but we can at least get you a head start. What it costs money. It costs a lot to build a house, but at least we could pull this off the budget line. Here, again, reading from this article, before the LA fires, Alta Dena's population was 58% people of color. Around 18% residents were Black, according to the last census data. The community was a part of an unincorporated, like I said, Los Angeles County. It has Black home ownership rate nearly twice as high as the national average. Around 75% of Black Alta Dena residents own their homes, according to the UCLA Center of Neighborhood Knowledge. That is remarkable. This is why that was such a historic loss. 75% like own their homes? Bruh. That's crazy. The cities where Black people are right now, they in South Carolina, they in Atlanta. That's a different story. This LA, bro, 75% owns. That's a big deal, right? Let me see. Let me give you some more. So the packages have, like, say they contain information about the person's property, including the size, zoning classification, and historical records. They also contain a timeline for how much each of these phases of the rebuild is expected, and to take an action plan to stay on track. Like, dude, they project managed it for you. Bro, that's amazing. There's some good news. Some other good news would be how much money was raised. Russell Westbrook, Tiffany Haddish, these stars came in giving away food, giving away clothing. One of the dopest things, get this, was an historic home relocation project, which was, you remember them old school, well, you don't remember that, none of us do, them Sears pre-made box homes. You could order a house, put it together, and ship it somewhere. This happened out here, and there was a home in Los Feliz, right, which is Gentrified, baby, gentrified. One of the most gentrified areas, hipster areas of LA, right? There was a relocation project to give Eden fire victims faster alternative than rebuilding from scratch, right? So there was this 1910 craftsman style home that was on Poppy Fields Drive that was taken to Alta Dena at 6:15 a.m. a few months ago, right? So the home was taken apart, reassembled, and placed on somebody's plot. That's amazing, right? $50 million was raised through them concerts. You remember all them concerts, all them things that was going on, all this stuff. We raised a lot of money and people really came through. This is where the National Guard showed up and did a lot of good things. This is where like your federal tax dollars at work kind of worked. It cleared debris. You know, there's community coming together. Nonprofits have stepped in. There was one called Dora Hope that was able to give $100,000 to this little music school to be able to get a new piano. Like, people have truly come together. It was really an amazing thing. Roughly 120 organizations split about $50 million from the first round of fire aid that was released on February 7th, right? And so you get this big pot, and then they were all given to very small, or not very small, all given to different organizations. Now, the issue with that is a lot of times when money is raised, there is a black box. I mean, niggas start shutting up about how the money is distributed. And where there's a vacuum of information, there's a lot of tomfoolery. Now, I am on the board of a nonprofit. This is my second nonprofit I've been on the board of. Both of them in international peace building humanitarian organizations. There is such thing as operations costs. There is a reality that like people do work here. They do need their salaries, right? There is only so much a not-for-profit organization can generate in for-profit ways. Then the rest of it has to be generated through donations and stuff like that. Now, niggas don't be reading the fine print. And that fine print becomes the degree for which that print is fine, fine, is the degree for which you know this organization is shady or not. I'm saying this from like experience. For example, when I worked at Preemptive Love, which is a now non-existent org because the bits of it that was like really about that life got folded into the one that I work at now, Search for Common Ground. The leftover bits, not leftover bits, but the former founder of Preemptive Love, he's got a new one called Humanite, which there was never a question about this fool's commitment to the struggle. So like, no shade towards Jeremy and the kids' commitment to the struggle, man. They out there, especially right now during Gaza. All bets are off, cuz like whatever old beef y'all had, that shit is done now. You know what I'm saying? Gaza's being starved. Like, forget about the beef. Let's save some lives. And there wasn't any beef anyway. All I'm saying is, at Preemptive Love, when you donated, it was very clear on the website that like, look, because we work in conflict zones that are sometimes ran by not so shady individuals, they're ran by anti-government organizations, or they just ran by just straight up thugs that the West might call terrorists. If I'm gonna get food, if I'm gonna get aid, if I'm gonna get shelter into this part of that country, you got to pay some people off. There's going to be some suitcases full of cash that it just is what it is. Your money might have gone to a terrorist Rolex. I don't know what to tell you. Now, me and you being from America sounds very weird. But if you've ever worked in gang interventions, if you ever worked in inner city neighborhoods, if you've ever tried to I could talk to the homie JB about this. I'm going to give a little bit of story about this without giving any names, but if you work in these environments, especially these inner city environments, you have to tap in. Even if you're doing good stuff, you have to make sure it's okay. We ain't gonna do nothing, you all good. You solid with us. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if you're coming in, you doing a pancake breakfast, you doing a little kickball match for the kids. You're the city, and you're about to set up a little stage with some face painting and give away backpacks for school. You need to talk to Pookie and them. You gotta go talk to OG Silent. You have to go tap in. And pinning on your reputation with them, they might just be like 20 racks and we still robbing you. They might be like 20 racks and then get 10 racks to another set, and then the set come rob you. Or they be like, nah, you solid, but yeah, like, it's a business. The amount of money we about to lose by you doing this nice stuff means we can't do our criminal activities right now. So like, yeah, you just, you pay us off and you good. And then maybe next time when they see that, like, you really about the community, you really one of us, you really cool, then you be solid. Then you like, all right, you good, man. Nah, whenever you need it, just make sure you tap in before, because I can't guarantee, some of these young niggas, some of these like hop out boys, I can't guarantee that. But like, I'll put the word out, and then everybody will know once I put the word out, nah, he's solid. Y'all, they good. They could go through here, right? Sometimes your donations, I'ma tell you, is going to that nigga. You feel me? You have to be real about it. You have to be real on your website that like, this percentage of your donations is going to operation fees. Now, if you really a real one, you gonna explain to me what your operation fees. You should have a charter that says your donations for each particular thing and what they're gonna go to, and that there's a wall between these type of non-restricted funds and then the funds that can cover payroll. That's supposed to be clear. It's crazy that I know this stuff, but that's supposed to be clear. The problem is when there is a crisis like the Eden fire, stuff be moving so fast, people be moved so hard that it's real easy for shady individuals to come through and claim 80% as operation fees. Nigga, 80? But they could still say they raised, this much and they gave away this much. And this leads to a lot of like misinformation. This was one of the hardest things for me to find out, which was where this money went. Now, because, and to this day, and to this moment, I'm not going to be very specific about it because I don't trust the sources I've read. Like, it's so hard to find truthful sources about where the hell the money, $50 million went. Now within that, some organizations, like I said, are very transparent about it. Yo, here's a website. Here's where it is. There's so many websites right now that LA put together about mutual funds, about recovery. LA has been very clear about building websites as to how to apply for funds, where to get it at, and when we can pay it out. But the people that put together that music festival, I don't even know I don't know where the money is, and I can't find it. That's crazy, right? But it doesn't mean individual people haven't got donations, because there's also a website that of firsthand accounts of people that are like, yeah, I got my money from this and this. You know what I'm saying? The local news stations, this is what I meant earlier, the local news stations, you go to Fox, you go to ABC, you go to all of our local news channels, they want the feel good stories. So I can see those. Like, I don't know. Which leads us to the bad news. Next. The easiest one. Let's just say, out of the strangest perfect storm of perfect situations, given the situation you in, your house burns down, but you had insurance, your insurance was up to date, they agreed to a certain amount, whatever shortfall came in through donations, you got one of these like pre-made 200 like floor plans and architectural thing from Noma. Who gonna build the house? Nigga, ICE raids. So even if you have the money, even if you got it set up, ain't nobody there to build the houses, fam, because you done. God dang it. Do you understand? Do you understand the situation these people is in? So the bad news is, even if you had everything, the workforce has been chopped in half because fools is scared to go to work because they gonna get snatched up by a hop out boy. What is... Anyway, sit that to the side. In our imaginary situation, that's saying that the insurance actually paid out. That's not what happened. Now, this is psycho. According to NPR and this organization called Circling the News, which it took me a while to figure out if they was like an actual legit thing, but I double checked a lot of the stuff they were saying, and we got some things in there. So, first problem is the insurance. Let's just say you had insurance, or at least you thought you did. When you went to go make your claim, what you might have found out is that the company you worked with wasn't going to renew your policy anyway because they've closed the entire zip code. People woke up to realize that their house insurance wasn't house insurance. There's stories of people who went through 7 different brokers that was like, we can't cover it. Some people was like, look, I'm just uninsured. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna have to figure out the money to build this house. And that's if you plan on rebuilding, right? Other insurance brokers, after they said, we can cover you, but we can cover about $350 per square foot, which is like, dun, dun, dun. It's not enough. It's not at all enough to equal the worth of the house that they had. Now, here's my situation. I'm actually in this situation now. When a company like State Farm, which was all over the news, decided they just wasn't going to cover California no more, your mortgage company just picks up a company for you. And all they do is cover hazard pay. It's the equivalent of your car insurance just being the basic coverage, where it's like, this really ain't covering shit, right? Most people in Alta Dena found themselves in that situation, right? So California, obviously, of most of America, has the highest fire risk, but its insurance is cheaper than in many other states. Watch this. In fact, the insurance industry agrees that it says companies have been retreating from California precisely because they aren't allowed to charge enough to cover the risk. The real issue is the inability to get adequate rates, says the American Property Casualty Insurance Association. There was this 1988 law, right, that was on our ballot that said it prevents the arbitrary insurance rate hikes, meaning insurance is, as you know now, or as you should know, is a scam, right? You paying monthly into something, and then when you need them, they ain't got the money. People was getting their insurance checks. This also happened, and then saying, don't cash the check till Tuesday. And then you cash the check on Tuesday and the check bounce. Why? Because they ain't got the money, because insurance is a scam. We supposed to all be paying into this thing monthly, right? So that if something go wrong, according to my policy, you pay me out. But the insurance company is saying, well, y'all not giving us enough money for if something happens, we're going to be able to cover y'all. So give us more money. And the country was like, or the state was like, you have enough. And what the hell kind of, maybe you shouldn't approve that many. Maybe the whole system is bullshit. If what you saying is you ain't got enough money to insure your insurance. I don't seem like my fault. That seems like your fault. It's like, help me help you. So people was getting their insurance checks, $900,000, and then couldn't cash them because the insurance company broke. And the insurance company is saying, well, all of y'all are cashing y'all's things. To which other companies were like, we just not gonna be here. We can't cover it. Oh, Lord. Now, Congressman John Garamendi, who served as the former insurance commissioner, told Alta Dena residents, under California Proposition 103, the insurance commissioner has the clear authority. He can compel insurers to pay claims fully and promptly and block any rate increase until survivors are made whole. There should be no doggone rate hikes for companies that break their promises. Because as you know, if you use your insurance, your rate goes up. It's insane. So companies are leaving. So the insurance left. And if they do pay out, they're not even paying a fraction of what it is. Now that's if you're willing to try to rebuild. You only getting a fraction of it. And even if you getting a fraction of it, they still raising your rates. Nonetheless, our heart's desire was to protect Alta Dena. But what are you gonna do if you truly have no other option? Now, some of the insurance companies were paying out ways for you to rent somewhere until your house got rebuilt. But you got to remember, you got to meet the shortfall. Now, do you have a spare $500,000 to meet the shortfall? I don't. So that would mean your only option is probably sell, because you got to start over. But the signs popped up everywhere. Alta Dena not for sale. Let me tell y'all something. Alta Dena is absolutely for sale. More bad news, y'all. First of all, of the houses that are rebuilt, watch this. 5%. 5% of more than 900 rebuild permits submitted to Alta Dena have been approved, indicating that rebuilding efforts are still at its early stages. In contrast, check this out, around 25% of the nearly 400 rebuilds permits in Pacific Palisades are already approved, showing a significant different progress between the two regions, because racism is gone racism. 5%, bro. So let's just say you in a perfect situation where you got the money, you got the plans, you figured out the insurance, now you want a permit. Niggas is waiting on permits. Only 5%. You're not even approving. So even if you could figure it out, the city not approving the rebuilds. Now, why they not approving the rebuilds, I don't know. I'm just saying the Palisades ain't got that problem. Eye roll. Anyway, Alta Dena is absolutely for sale. So roughly, this is according to the LA Times, About 145 burned lots have sold so far. Around 100 are currently being listed and dozens more are in escrow. The identities of every single buyer isn't clear since many are obscured by trusts or limited liability companies. But real estate records and local sources suggest that developers are buying a lion's share of the lots. Y'all, this what happens. This what happened in Katrina. This what happened in Beaumont, in Houston, outside of Houston, when the floods. They just swoop in and buy it. Who are these limited liability groups, right? Now, this is far outpacing, again, the Palisades, where less than 60 lots have sold since the fire and roughly 180 are sitting on the market, sometimes for months. Why? Because they can rebuild. Oh, man. But what are you going to do? Like, you sell to the highest bidder. Somebody come in here with a cash offer, right? What are you going to do? There was a story where one lady said she had her house listed and one agent called me and said he has someone looking to buy 100 lots, right? This is how we lose our neighborhoods, man. Now, according to Realtor.com, roughly 165 properties were sold in Alta Dena in the first 5 months of 2025, with more than half of them being bought by investors. For comparison, only about 15% of the buyers in Alta Dena were investors starting in 2024. And according to the latest data available on Realtor.com. Now, the median price of a sale for a house in Alta Dena so far this year is $675,000, roughly half of the previous year, which median sale was $1.25 million. It's kind of a no-brainer. Of course you're going to buy these houses. Now, what they said was happening, it wasn't so much people buying up 100 lots to turning them into complexes. It's more like people being able to buy 4 and 5 lots, toss up these houses. And it's not people, it's investment firms. Who are those firms? I don't know. Maybe Blackstone, right? Blackstone is who bought up most of our housing. But for us to be in this housing crisis, and then investors just buying up I know they're not doing that in Palisades. So, yeah. You can go to recovery.lacounty.gov to see a little more information on it. But at the end of the day, man, like, to live and die in LA, man, what they supposed to do? That's how cities become corporate towns, man. Disaster hit, investors come in and swoop it all up. We pay for insurance to try to protect our houses, but the insurance don't be paying out. You even have somebody that donate the architectural plans, but the city not approving the rebuild permits. What we supposed to do, homie? I don't know, man. That's what's going on in Alta Dena, though. Hood politics. All right, now, don't you hit stop on this pod. You better listen to these credits. I need you to finish this thing so I can get the download numbers, okay? So don't stop it yet. But listen, this was recorded in East Los Boyle Heights by your boy Propaganda. Tap in with me at prophiphop.com. If you're into cold brew coffee, we got Terraform Cold Brew. You can go there.com and use promo code HOOD, get 20% off, get yourself some coffee. This was mixed, edited, and mastered by your boy Matt Osowski, killing the beat softly. Check out his website, mattosowski.com. I'm gonna spell it for you because I know. MattWski.com, MattOsowski.com. He got more music and stuff like that on there, so go and check out The Heat. Hood Politics is a member of Cool Zone Media, executive produced by Sophie Lichterman, part of the iHeartMedia Podcast Network. Your theme music and scoring is also by the one and only Matt Osowski, still killing the beat softly. So listen, don't let nobody lie to you. If you understand urban living, you understand politics. These people is not smarter than you. We'll see y'all next week.